So, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Today, we are going to talk about an issue that really concerns everyone in the academia and beyond. Where is the borderline of plagiarism? And with us, we have the president of the European Network for Academic Integrity, Tomáš Foltínek, and Dita Hennek-Blablova, both from Mendel University in Brno, Czechia, and they really are experts in this field. So I'm really excited to hear their thoughts about this exciting subject. So thank you. Here you are. I think you can start. People are probably going to drop in. We are recording this webinar and it's going to be put on the INAI website for everyone to see. So please ask your questions in the chat and have a lovely webinar. Here you are, Tomáš and Dita.
So again, good afternoon or good morning, everyone. So welcome again on our webinar. Thank you, Sonia, very much for the introduction. So let's start. So as Sonia said, my name is Dita Hennek-Blablova, and I will lead the webinar today with my colleague Tomáš Foltínek. We will take turns during presenting, and every time the one who is not presenting, he will be in the chat and he will be there to answer your questions. So you don't have to wait until the end of the webinar to ask your questions. We really suggest you to start the discussion anytime when it's when you want to. There will be someone to answer your questions in the chat, or at least we will try our best. So what to expect from this webinar, or what is this webinar about? Actually, not to commit plagiarism, we have to thank to our co-authors who actually participated in creating this webinar, especially Irene Glendinning from Coventry University from UK. She's the original author of this webinar, and together with Tomáš and also with Ansgar Schäfer from Konstanz University in Germany, we adapted the webinar, and we also made many translations of this webinar. So this webinar, or actually it was originally a workshop, it's a webinar only for quite a short amount of time, because it used to be a workshop. So we translated this webinar or workshop to many different languages, and we will provide you at the end the link where you can find the different language versions of this session. So what do we have here today? So we will start with some examples of plagiarism, like real examples taken from our experience, from our university, from actually our faculty. Then we will head to the definition of plagiarism. So we will try to find some definition on which all of us we can agree. Then we will come to the interactive part of this workshop. We will play kind of a game which is called Where is the Borderline? And within this game, there will be different scenarios or different cases. And your task will be to judge whether this is plagiarism or not. We are going to use for this tool, which is called Kahoot. So those of you who know Kahoot, you know what to expect. For the others, what you are going to need will be only a browser, preferably a different browser, a browser in a different device than which you are using to watch this webinar. It's okay to use the same device, but it might be better to take, for example, a smartphone to use to play the Kahoot. But I will provide you the exact instructions later when we will get there. Then we will discuss different reasons for plagiarism. Also, we will share some results from research that we have done in the previous years in different countries of Europe. And of course, we will focus on prevention, and there will be space for discussion, but we really encourage the discussion for the whole time of the webinar. So let's now start with the examples.
Okay, hello from me also. So let's describe the examples. As Dita said, we have here two examples from a bachelor thesis of our faculty, one from diploma thesis and another from bachelor thesis. The one I'm presenting now, well, I guess that most of you don't understand Czech language, but it doesn't matter. It's a screenshot from of two PDF documents. One is a thesis which was submitted at another university a couple of years before the year of submission of this thesis. It was at our faculty. The text matching software yielded in a similarity score of 24%, which is high enough to raise some suspicion, but nobody expects that that whole thesis would be plagiarized. But after looking closely to this case, we could see that the table of contents is almost the same, and also the text of the thesis is almost the same. The text match was not 100% because what the student did was that he paraphrased the whole thesis. He did not copy it word for word, but paraphrased the whole thesis. But all the titles of the chapters and subchapters were the same or almost the same. And what was interesting, as the original thesis was submitted in, I think, 2012 or 2013, it would be ought to have the scale of the years when there are some charts ending in 2009 when you are submitting your thesis in 2017. So what the student did, he just shifted the scale. So the data is still the same, but the scale is shifted to create the impression that the data are newer. So it is not difficult to imagine what happened with this student. So we managed to expel him from the university even before before the defense, before the state exam. So he never graduated and probably lost his job in an insurance company, which cost him. He got a job which costed him a lot of time, and he needed a master's degree to get this job. So he kind of get an exception that he could work at this position for some time until he get the master degree. But because of this plagiarism, he never got a master degree. So he was expelled not only from the university, but also lost his job. Well, this case, even though the similarity score from the text matching software was lower than we would like to, it was pretty clear that the whole thesis is plagiarized. But as you know from your practice at your institutions, not all cases are as clear as this one. What we have, I would say, especially at our institution, as a most frequent like gray zone case, is that the student copies word for word a significant part of the text, let's say several paragraphs or even several pages, and then there is a source indicated at the end of the copied part. But you have no idea if this source refers just to the one paragraph or one page or one chapter. You cannot recognize that. So we will talk about these cases in a few moments. So these are two examples just to start our webinar, and because the webinar is about plagiarism, and we will be looking for the borderline of plagiarism where a poor citation practice, let's say, ends and plagiarism begins. So we should be clear about what plagiarism is, about definition. So this is my question for all participants. What do you understand by plagiarism? Please write down your definition to the chat. We have now, how many people here? 27 participants. Yeah, so I would love to see 27 definitions in the chat. And please send it to not only all panelists, but also to all attendees, so everyone can see all the definitions.
Yeah, I haven't counted the definitions, but I think we have quite many, and they are still appearing. I'm trying to read them. I will start like somewhere from the middle. That it's definitely a form of academic dishonesty. This is actually a thing which I forget to remind the students, that it's that maybe here we should start that it's academic dishonesty.
No, not always.
Yeah. Then I could saw something stealing, cheating. Yeah, they were the like one-word definitions. And I think what appears very often is to use others' work or words without proper attribution, without proper citation, without proper acknowledgement, stating the sources, and so on. And yeah, without giving credits to the author. And somewhere else I saw yeah, attempts to gain unfair advantage in academic writing, and also something that appears generated by the submitter, but it isn't. So I think we perfectly described the definition which we have on the following slide. So it's a use of the ideas which we mentioned, content or structure. I think I saw among one of the answers in the chat the structures as well, without appropriately acknowledging the source. And yeah, here is the setting, or sorry, in order to get some benefit when the originally is expected. This definition that we use within the European Network for Academic Integrity, the definition which we agreed on, it's based on definition provided by Teddy Fishman and by German authors Moischke and Gibb, and we are adding to this let's say general definition, taking something without proper acknowledgement of the source, the benefit, which is quite important, and also the settings where the originality is expected. Actually, these two parts really helped me in the discussions with some, let's say, academicians, which usually start the argument. So this means that I cannot use my old email that I use every time to my students at the beginning of the semester because I would commit plagiarism. So like this part really helped me in this like never-ending discussions where people bring like really nonsense examples there and try to argue with me that this is that my definition of plagiarism is not working. So it might be like really pretty useful argument in the discussions. So what plagiarism usually includes, it was also basically here in the chat. So using work of someone else and presenting it as our own. Also, we have to remember that plagiarism also includes the translation of plagiarism, or translation plagiarism, and paraphrasing of other work and presenting it as original. That was the first case that we had here as an example from Tomasz. Also, what we usually remind a lot to the students that also using my own work, which was previously used to get some benefit, without proper acknowledging this work, also includes plagiarism. We call it self-plagiarism or auto-plagiarism. And also that actually even to failing citing correctly and referencing another source falls among the plagiarism. And for this aspect of plagiarism, probably would not would not be described by the answers, which was about the cheating, about intentional copying, about the fraud, because also these mistakes falls under the plagiarism or under the definition of plagiarism. But of course, we would deal differently with the mistake and with the intentional copying. And this is what we are going to discuss later. And also, of course, if someone else contributes the work somehow and we don't provide him a credit, this also falls under the definition. What is also good to remind to the students is that not everything has to be cited and everything has to be referenced. Otherwise, every word in the text would end up with having something in the brackets and it would not be readable. So we don't have to reference or provide a source for the general knowledge or for the knowledge from our field, which we just use, for example, as the introductions to connect the sentences, connect the arguments. And also sometimes the students get worried about the contribution because sometimes they want somebody to do proofreading for them, or they ask somebody to help them with the formatting. So it's also good to remind them that when the contribution does not influence the content, it's then the person who did not influence the content but did this kind of contribution is not an author, but we can acknowledge him in the acknowledgement section or in some notes or comments to the given work. Okay, so let's first, or let's again move to some part with the discussion. So why should we actually deal with the plagiarism? So again, please pass your answers to the chat. I can see the question about this, yeah, or maybe Tomasz. Can you comment on it?
I will jump in here because there is a question in the chat about what does structure mean in the definition. So my answer was that it can be either argumentation structure or structure of the whole work, like table of the contents. And the question then is, how does it differ from a modal structure given to follow for a report or essay, for example? Here, what is important is, well, if the last part of the definition, if the originality is expected. If you want your, let's say, students in their assignment to follow some structure of the report, then in this part, of course, you don't expect originality. So it's completely okay if they follow the prescribed structure. But if you, for example, it's a case that we had recently in Czechia, where a vice rector of a prestigious university was forced to resign because of plagiarism, and the plagiarism was exactly in the structure of the work. He took a content of the work of another author and wrote his own book following this structure, following the chapters, following the table of contents without proper attribution. So I hope I answered that, and now we can see the answers for Dita's question. Why should universities be interested in addressing plagiarism? Why it is a problem?
Yeah, so integrity should be presence of any life. We also increase the quality of our product, increase the quality of knowledge of the students.
Yeah, the answers are about the credibility of university diploma, that the diplomas should certify some learning outcomes, and if a student plagiarizes his thesis or his assignment, it's unlikely that he or she achieved desired learning outcomes.
Yeah, there is also note that the question should be rather why we should ensure that the students are aware of the importance of academic integrity, because yeah, that's one thing that we care about, the academic integrity. On the other hand, if the students know that we care about it, so I really like this this comment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, also to encourage students all thinking instead of relying on the others.
And I can also see that it's about quality. So if the student, if a student is asked to produce some essay or thesis, so students are expected to produce original work and are expected to learn something by producing this original work. So it's if we make sure that it's really original and not plagiarized, it's about the quality of education that we are providing at our institutions.
Okay, so thank you very much for your contributions. Okay, still some students might cheat even when they are aware of the academic integrity, but I think there is like this kind of like Pareto principle that like there are 20% of students who will never cheat, 20% of students who will always cheat, or some amounts, and then there is the main part among them, and these are the students who we can influence on them. So this is, yeah, why it makes sense to discuss it, even when there are some people who will never change their mind, whatever we do. So let's move to the next part, and this is going to be the interactive part.
Mm-hmm.
So the part
yeah. I just when I started to share my screen, now it's reminded me that I forgot to post the link to a worksheet. So Dita,
I have it ready.
Right? Yeah.
I hope that it will work. Yeah.
Now the interactive part comes. So we will go through 8 scenarios. In all cases, we have student work. And imagine that 40% of student work is taken from other sources. And there are then the scenarios differ. And our task, or your task, will be to decide for each case whether a particular case is serious plagiarism, you might not be sure, or you are convinced that it is not plagiarism. So let's go through these 8 cases now. So scenario number 1. So we have 40%.
Let me stop you. There is a question in a chat which I think we should answer, and this is about the worksheet, because I just posted into the chat. So maybe we can comment on the worksheet a little bit. So in the worksheet, you have the short description of the scenarios with the columns where you can check what is your opinion, and there is also 2 columns about the penalties, which penalty, or like if you would apply a penalty for this. So yeah, so Tomasz will now explain the different scenarios, so you can use the worksheet to note down what is your opinion. Please just download the worksheet before you do any changes. Do not do it in the online version, because it's in Google Drive, so it allows you to do the changes, but please do not do the changes in the online version. And you can also think about the penalties. If you are a teacher, or if you are let's say skilled teacher, if you are less skilled teacher or just a student, maybe you can skip the 2 columns with the penalties, because it might be let's say, too overwhelming, I guess, to think about whether this is plagiarism and then think about the applying of the penalties.
Yeah, the more important part is your judgment of the scenario. Less important are penalties. And to answer the question in a chat, your opinion is what matters, not your institutional policy or whatever. Yeah, you are participating in the webinar on your own, so please feel it how you feel that. So scenario number 1, 40% of the text is copied word for word, no quotation marks, no in-text citations, no list of references at the end. Serious plagiarism, plagiarism, not sure, not plagiarism. Scenario number 2, the text is still the same, so 40% is copied from other sources, no quotation marks, no in-text citations, but we have list of references at the end, list of correct references. The text here is really taken from these sources. Scenario number 3, besides the list of references, we have also in-text citations, but there are still no quotation marks. So 40% of the work is copied, no quotation marks, but we have in-text citations there, and we have a list of references at the end. Scenario, and again, our task is to decide whether it is serious plagiarism, if we are not sure, or it is not plagiarism. In a scenario number 4, it's kind of patch writing. So 40% of the text is copied, but the copied parts are composed of short fragments, let's say 1 or 2 sentences picked from other sources and composed together. And again, no quotation marks, no in-text citations, no references. In a scenario number 5, we have also, let's say, patch writing. So 40% of work, 40% of the text is copied from other sources, 60% is original students' contribution, and the copied text is always in the quotation marks with correct in-text citation, and there is a list of correct references at the end. So this is scenario number 5, and again, we are to judge whether it is serious plagiarism, not sure, or definitely not plagiarism. Scenarios 6, 7, and 8 are the same or similar to scenarios 1, 2, and 3. The only difference is that some words are changed. Just to make sure what means that some words are changed, it means that really some of the words of the original source are replaced by synonyms. No more changes are done. And again, we have to judge if it is serious plagiarism, not sure, or not plagiarism. Scenario 6 is similar to scenario 1. So there are no quotation marks, no in-text citations, no list of references. In scenario number 7, we have list of references at the end, and in scenario number 8, we have also in-text citations, but no quotation marks. So what do you think? Here is a recap of these 8 scenarios. So we can give you, let's say, 2 more minutes to judge, and please make sure that you tick only one option for each scenario. If you have any questions about these scenarios, so please write them down to chat, and we can start voting in, let's say, 2 minutes.
Do you need more time for your to make your decision? Yeah, if you want to take the columns, you can either download the table and just open it in Microsoft Word and take the columns, or you can just take a piece of paper and just write down that one is no plagiarism, 4 is not sure, and so on. So just like note it down, somewhere down for yourself, and we will then do the voting through the Kahoot. Yeah, just either download it or just make like note it somewhere down, or if you manage to remember it, just you can just remember it. Okay, so let's move slowly to the Kahoot voting. So you should see now the web page of Kahoot. So open the web page in your browser, that is kahoot.it. As I mentioned at the beginning, it might be useful to open it on a different device than the one which you use for watching the webinars, because it will be more comfortable for you. So if you have a smartphone, you can use your smartphone. It's like very simple web page there, so it's like also smartphone friendly. Or you can just like open a browser and in your computer and watch it in your computer. So we can see some people are attending. You can use like whatever nickname you want. You don't have to like state real name or something. Yeah, I agree. 2 screens are amazing thing. This is why I'm sometimes looking like somewhere on the weird place, because there's my second screen. This is the screen which I'm sharing. Okay, someone with 4 screens. Okay, we have more than 20 participants, and I think this is what we are here right now. So I think we can start. So now we are going to go through the scenarios one by one, and after each scenario you will vote. And then we will discuss the scenario, why we think it is plagiarism, or why it is not plagiarism. The version of the Kahoot which I have and which we are using to run this game, unfortunately doesn't allow to have 2 correct answers. So even when in many of the cases it would be like totally okay to say if it would be okay to say that it is a plagiarism or serious plagiarism, both answers would be correct, or sometimes even I don't know would be correct answer. I had to go for 1 correct answer for each of the questions. So please do not feel offended that you don't get points for the correct answers. More correct answers are possible. Just the technical settings of Kahoot doesn't allow me to do with the version which I have, or with the license that I have. So let's start with the scenario number 1. So this was the one where we had the 40% of student work, and we had no quotations, we had no references, and we had no in-text citations. So now we have 1 minute for voting, and the red is serious plagiarism, yellow is plagiarism, blue is I'm not sure, and green is no plagiarism. So you can just follow the colors. It works like the traffic light, basically. Okay, so this was like a really strong. Yeah, this was strong majority. So I guess we all agreed that this is a serious plagiarism. I may be curious if there was some like purpose in selecting the green option, that this is not plagiarism, or if it was just a misclick, because I guess it often happens with Kahoot. I don't see anything in chat, so I guess there will be no tough argument that this is not plagiarism.
Well, it's 40%, it's less than half. Okay, let's assume it was a misclick. But what I just said was a real argument before our former Minister of Justice resigned because of plagiarism.
Okay, so let's go to the next one. So the scenario number 2. Oh yeah, I forgot that we have here the score. So the score is calculated according to the correct answer, and also according to the speed. So I think now it's like who was the fastest in selecting the answers. Okay, so let's go to the scenario number 2. Again, we have it the 40%. We have it word for word. There are no quotations. There is the list of the references at the end, and there are no in-text citations. And the colors still work the same. So red is for serious, yellow is for plagiarism, blue is not sure, and green is no plagiarism. Okay, so time limit was over, and now we have it like almost even. Well, yeah, there's not much a big difference between the serious plagiarism and the plagiarism. So actually, the answer which wasn't selected as the correct one with this technical limitation of Kahoot is the most common answer. So maybe this might be interesting to see this shift where you see for yourself the borderline between serious plagiarism and plagiarism for the people who went now for the just for plagiarism.
Maybe you can type to chat why you judge this case less seriously than the previous one. I know there's a list of references at the end, but does it make any difference, for example, in a disciplinary proceedings with student? Yeah, some attempt to acknowledge sources. Okay.
That might have been unintentional mistake. Especially when it would be first-year student or a student where you know that he doesn't have any experience with academic writing. Maybe he might think that this is the correct way how to do it, that he tried to provide the list of the references.
Okay, yeah, so we can to some extent trust the student that it was unintentional and caused because of lack of knowledge rather than like intentional dishonesty. Okay, it makes sense, and also the fact that let's say approximately half of the people voted for serious plagiarism and half of the participants voted for plagiarism is what we get quite often in these webinars, and I would say that both options are relevant, both options are correct.
Yeah, definitely. If I would have option to select 2 correct answers here, I would definitely select both serious plagiarism and plagiarism. I selected like serious plagiarism because we still have like 6 cases to go, so to have more space to like for more options for the 6 following scenarios. Oh, that there is a good point that it might have been the invented references. We never mentioned with this scenario if the references are actually the real references to the text when they are not connected with any particular part of the text. Yeah, and I definitely agree that the distinction between plagiarism and serious plagiarism is very subjective. There is like no given definition, and actually it's also part of this exercise to find your own borderline between the plagiarism and the serious plagiarism. Maybe can we stop here for a while? What makes the difference for you between the plagiarism and the serious plagiarism? Plagiarism is plagiarism. This is all serious. Okay, it's 1 point or one side point of, yeah, 1 point of view.
I would actually disagree. Dita and I were recently developing a list of recommendations, or let's say kind of a manual for teachers at our faculty. And considering the proceedings which we had at our university given by the Czech law, is that as a teacher you are allowed to solve some cases, and serious cases you have to pass to the disciplinary committee. So we had to set the borderline between plagiarism, which teachers are allowed to handle, and plagiarism, which they are obliged to report to the disciplinary committee. So there is, or from our point of view, there has to be some line between plagiarism and serious plagiarism. And where we put it was if it is intentional or if it is large extent. So large extent or intentional plagiarism has to be reported. Small extent unintentional plagiarism can be sorted out by teachers.
Yeah, I guess you did not manage to follow the chat in the time when you were talking, but this is actually what appeared in the chat, that when it's unintentional, then we consider it rather a mistake, poor citation practice. And when there is an intent, then we see the like big issue from the point of view of academic dishonesty. There's a very great question in the chat. How do you determine the intent? We spent quite a lot of time discussing this when we were preparing this these rules for our university. And basically, at the end, we rather went for the extent, because it makes a big difference when it's just a one paragraph. And the rest is like okay cited and so on, then probably the one paragraph which don't have a reference would be rather a mistake. Also, we can like really take into consideration the previous education of the student. So when we know that it's the first year student, we probably can't rely that he has the knowledge of proper academic writing or proper work with the sources from his previous studies at the secondary school. At least for us in Czech Republic, we can't rely on it. But when it's a student in later years, they receive some training or at least some information on this so the later students should have the knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Just one note when you are typing to the chat, so please switch it to all panelists and attendees to make sure that everyone sees what you are typing, well, unless you really want to send a private message to Dita and me. So all of us can see the whole discussion. But I think like we can move to the next scenario, which is usually even less clear than this one.
So we are just going to check the score again. I'm sorry for all the people who answered just plagiarism. It was counted as incorrect, so you did not receive the points. So the score doesn't really shows the real result. Okay, so scenario number 3. So we still go word for word there, and we have no quotations, we have no references, yeah, we have no index citations. Sorry, once again, we have no quotations, but we have references and index citations. Sorry, I got lost a little bit. Okay, so here the winner is plagiarism. Still, we have few people that see it as serious plagiarism, and we have few people who see it as no plagiarism. So now I would be interested in the arguments of the serious plagiarism and no plagiarism. So what, yeah, into the two extremes. So please, again, share your opinion into the chat.
Maybe a misclick, or we can't see any answers, any reasons.
There is a huge amount of text. It's still almost a half of the document, which was taken from some other sources. And basically, if I read it as a teacher or if I read it as any reader, I think the whole text is just the word of the authors. So it like really misleads me as the reader of the text. So from this point of view, we can see it as serious. I agree. Yeah, and the other opinion is that it looks like that it was unintentional, that the student really tried to insert the references, but probably missed the part of the knowledge that he should use also the quotation marks. So I think these are the 2 points of view. Either you still see it as a serious because it's very misleading. On the other hand, here we would probably really trust the student that it was unintentional, that he was trying to do it correctly, but he did not succeed.
And I have to add that from our experience, when we, Dita and I, conducted these workshops in Czechia, either at our university or as a webinar for other universities, people frequently judged this case as not plagiarism because the in-text citations are there, the references are there, and sometimes it was difficult to convince them that the problem that you can't distinguish copied part from the student's original work really makes it a case of plagiarism. But I believe that we made it.
We have actually a real life example which helps us in this argument. So even if I don't have like here the feeling that we have to share the example to convince you that this is a case of plagiarism or that this is a problematic, I think we all agree that this is a problematic. Just some of you, I guess, rather judge it as the mistake than the intentional issue. I think this example might be interesting for you to use it in your teaching practice or when you're explaining things to the students. And what I like on the example is that it's based on a case which was outside of academia. So it's an example from a blog. It like the real case was happening on a blog. In our simplified, extremely simplified example, it is a blog of Mr. Apple. And Mr. Apple was writing a blog, and he was writing blog about other fruit and other vegetables. And he was writing about Mr. Lemon, and he was using as his source Mrs. Carrot. And he said that Mrs. Carrot says about Mr. Lemon is yellow. She also adds about him that he's citrus. Then Mrs. Carrot mentioned that Lemon is sour and he's salty. And Mrs. Carrot revealed that he grows on trees. When Mr. Lemon read this blog post, he got really offended because he was already like a little bit angry previously on Mr. Apple, and now he felt offended because there was a thing which was not true about him. And this was the stuff that he was bitter. So he didn't feel that he is bitter. He felt that he is sour, but he is not bitter. And he was, as he was already angry, he decided that he will put Mr. Lemon to the court and let the court decide. And when there was the hearing in front of the court, Mr. Apple was defending himself that he is not author of the lie. He did not offend Mr. Apple was defending himself that he did not offend Mr. Lemon, because everything that he was using was coming from another source, and that he really stated the source, that the source was actually Mrs. Carrot, and that Mrs. Carrot should be the one who should be now standing in front of the court. But the court did some analysis of the text, and what they said that from the logic of the text, it appears that every part of the text is taken from some source. So everything is taken from Mrs. Carrot, with the exception of one part. And this is the part about which is not true. So obviously from the logical of the text or from the composition of the text, it is obvious that this part is not taken from another source, but this is a part which comes from the head of Mr. Apple. So actually it's Mr. Apple who tells the lie. It's not some source which tells the lie. And for this, Mr. Apple has to pay some huge amount of money. It was actually 2,000 euros to Mr. Lemon as kind of apology to him. So Mr. Apple lost this hearing. So if we use this example to show the students that it's really important to show where the part taken from other sources starts and where your own ideas start, not only to prevent the plagiarism, but also kind of like to a little bit to back up yourself, that when you are relying on some source, to really show that you are relying on him. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get back to Kahoot, so it might take me some time. Okay, I'm there. Okay, I can see some questions in chat. I will try to read them quickly.
Maybe I can jump in.
Yeah.
It was about disagreement with encouraging the use of quotation marks to circumvent the charge of plagiarism. Yeah, of course, if you properly quote everything and properly cite everything which is quoted, then you cannot be charged of plagiarism. But that's then there's another question: if the contribution, the intellectual contribution of the student is sufficient enough to, let's say, pass the course or defend the thesis. But we have to distinguish between the ethical problem, if there is plagiarism, like something taken from other sources without acknowledgement, and then, let's say, the professional level of the work, if the intellectual contribution is enough to pass. Yeah, so of course, if there is no student contribution, he or she can still fail the assignment, but the reason is lack of contribution, but not plagiarism. These are two aspects which should not be mixed.
Yeah, and there's another question which is basically about the same topic. Yes, even when the student cites perfectly correctly, but he does not bring enough of the contribution, he can still fail the assignment because of the low quality of the assignment. But then it's the problem, yeah, of the quality and not the ethical aspect.
And actually, this is the topic of the following scenarios.
Yeah. Okay, so Sonia is not winning anymore. AR again moved to the front. Okay, so let's move to the next scenario, and now we will have the patchwork plagiarism, patchwork writing case, where we have the many short phrases from many sources. And then number 4, we have no quotations, we have no references, and we have no in-text citations. Sorry, I forgot to, I focused on the chat and I forgot to see that we are already end up with the voting. So here we have the major agreement that this is a serious plagiarism or plagiarism. Would you like to comment something on this? Maybe there was some shift between this case and some of the previous cases. Yeah, I think there's not much to discuss, even when it's made from some bigger amount of sources. Still, they are not acknowledged at all. So we still can just rely back on our definition of plagiarism that we had at the very beginning. Here with this step, when I am having this workshop with my students, they start to argue that the author in this case, they did or she did much more effort than with the first case when it was coming just from a few sources. But still, even when he did when it was some effort to put this together, still the effort was kind of worthless or useless because he still did it incorrectly. So that's my quite often argument, that the actually amount of effort does not count when the effort is useless. Okay, so let's check the score. So F is on the front.
And I agree that it's a wrong effort. The comment chat. It was an effort, but let's say pointless effort.
Yeah, pointless, useless effort, exactly. Okay, so let's move to the scenario number 5. Here again we have many short phrases from many sources. We have there the quotations, we have the in-text citations, and we have the list of the references. Okay, nice stairs up. So most of us here agreed that this is not plagiarism, but anyway, we confused someone. Somebody is not sure about this case, and few of you would still consider it plagiarism. So yeah, maybe let's stop with this minority answers, the blue one or the yellow one, the not sure or plagiarism. What made you not sure, or maybe?
Or why do you think it's plagiarism? Yeah, we have the question of not enough original content from the student. But as we explained before, we should make sure to distinguish the ethical issue of committing plagiarism and the quality issue of providing enough original work. So of course, if there is not enough or not sufficient students' contribution, he or she should fail, but the reason should not be plagiarism, but low quality. Yeah, and Dita and I completely agree that this is low quality, poor writing, and all the stuff you are writing to the chat. We are not arguing that the student should get an A mark for this work. We are just arguing that this is not plagiarism. It doesn't fulfill the definition.
Yeah, and I think there might be some like really extremely special cases where this work might be okay. I usually provide my students an example if it would be a review of different definitions of plagiarism. If the task of the student would be find as many definitions of plagiarism as you can and write some comments on them, then I guess this would be fine. But I think it's like really kind of like special settings in which this would be still quality work.
Yeah, even in the literature review, there should be some original contributions, some arguments, some comparisons, identification of gaps, and so on.
Yeah, I guess we have here a kind of agreement that it's poor writing, well, or that it depends on the type of the assignment. Okay, so let's move to the next scenario, and now we have the free scenario with words change. So F is still leading. Okay, so next one. So we have there no quotations, no references, and no in-text citations. And in this case, we have some words changed. So here and there is some synonym that was replaced. Okay, total agreement. I think this is the first time where we had like no, I'm sorry, I did not see the number ones. I have it hidden by my okay, so it's not total agreement. Almost total agreement. So we have here majority considering it's serious plagiarism. There is one plagiarism and one not plagiarism. We will come back to this scenario like quite shortly. So I would now move to this number 7, and we will discuss this one a little bit later. Okay, so F is still on the front. And the number 7, we still have some words changed. We still have no quotations. We have here the list of the references, and we have no in-text citations. So there are no in-text citations. So here we got in like almost perfectly even between serious plagiarism and between plagiarism. We have here few not plagiarisms. Yes, so do you want to comment any of these 3 opinions on this?
Preferably why it is not plagiarism, because we can imagine that the borderline between serious plagiarism and plagiarism is kind of blurred. So it's perfectly okay that some of you ticked serious, some of you ticked not serious plagiarism.
Yeah, so simply listing the references doesn't remove us from the seriousness. So basically, this is what we discussed with the previous scenario number 2, that there is just the list of references, but we don't see to which they apply in the text. Yeah, also the same as the number 1. Okay, so I think the time is running up, so let's check the score and let's move to the scenario number 8. Again, F is on the front.
And in the chat there is a comment that changing some words is an attempt to deceive. Yeah, that's 2 points of view to this scenario. It's either an attempt to deceive or poor paraphrase. And don't forget to vote. Number 8 is on screen.
Yeah, I just had probably some problem with the internet, so I did not comment on number 8. Okay, so here we have the result, and the majority went for the plagiarism. 1 serious plagiarism, 1 not sure, and 1 not plagiarism. So, any comments for this case? Yeah, so there was some effort. It's less serious than the previous one. Again, probably we would trust the student that it wasn't intentional, that he was trying to do it. Actually, these cases, unlike the first cases, they can't be fixed by adding these 3 things. We can't just add the references, add the in-text citations, and add the quotation marks to fix the case, because it isn't a word for word which we can put into the quotation marks. So here there is basically no way how to fix it otherwise than just rewrite it in the proper paraphrasing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also difficult to important to explain this to the students, that copying and changing some words doesn't make any sense. You either copy and put the text to the quotation marks or properly paraphrase, but nothing in between.
I was promising you that we will come back to the cases 1 and 6. This is the cases where there is nothing, no quotation marks, no references, no in-text citations. And number 1, it is word by word, and the number 6 is with some words changed. So among these 2 cases, which of you, according to your opinion, is the worst one? Sorry, we have to check the score, but we have still F in the front. So now just select whether worse is number 1 in your point of view, or if 6 is the worst from your point of view. You can't select both. I'm sorry, that's technical limitation of Kahoot.
But now it's about the decision of which is worse, so you can't select both, even by the nature of the question.
Okay. It could have been a little bit more even. We could have 8 and 8, but 7 and 9 is pretty even. Yeah, actually, I selected the correct answer right now from my point of view. So I selected as the correct answer the 6, where some words are changed. And this is already what Tomasz said, and I think it was there in the comments in the chat as well, that probably in number 6 the person was trying to deceive the reader, or maybe just deceive the anti-plagiarism software in checking the plagiarism. So probably here we have the attempt to intentional plagiarism. In number 7, it might be just that the student really did not know. Maybe if it was a small child and first time trying to write something, maybe we might trust him that he really did not know that this is the way how it's done.
Yeah, but in this case, it's really difficult or even impossible to say that one of the options are correct, because both reasons, like either intent to deceive or lack of paraphrasing skills, can be valid reason for such work. So that's why we have always to discuss the case with the student if there is such case, and find out why he or she did that, and explain that this is not proper work.
Yeah, the problem with the incorrect paraphrasing might be also the case that he was trying to paraphrase, but he failed. Okay, with this question, we can check the final score.
Yeah. Who is the winner? Wow. Nazrin, congratulations.
Yeah, Nazrin is at our Mendel University working with us. So congratulations. And F, yeah, we could saw you that you are on the top. Okay, congratulations.
F, congratulations.
Yeah, let's stay with these 2 scenarios, and we will check what actually students think about these 2 scenarios.
Yeah, so Dita and I had the opportunity to be involved in a couple of European projects, and we asked students and teachers about these scenarios, and we collected thousands of responses. So what the European students think about these cases. So if it is scenario number 1, word for word, no quotations, and so on. So we can see that the convincement across Europe that this is really plagiarism, either serious plagiarism or serious plagiarism, is really high. In most countries, more than 90% of students agree that this is case of plagiarism. However, changing some words really decreases the convincement. You can see that the convincement about serious plagiarism is much lower, and even the convincement about plagiarism is definitely not as high as in previous case. We can see that in some countries, a lot of students are not sure or even think that this is not plagiarism. You know, it's 40%, it's less than half. Some words are changed, so there was some intellectual effort, and so on and so forth. Let's look for reasons for student plagiarism. Why do you think that students plagiarize? Again, write down as many reasons as you can think of to the chat. So we have poor time planning and organization. They don't know that copying isn't acceptable. Poor time management, lack of knowledge, lack of linguistic skills, fear of failure. They are lazy, they panic.
Peer pressure and family pressure.
Not yet trained. Lack of confidence. Okay. Let me share the answers from the thousands of several thousands of responses which we got. You can see that the reasons why the student plagiarize are pretty different if you ask teachers and if you ask students. If you ask teachers why do students plagiarize, they'll tell you that it's easy to cut and paste, so they are lazy, They don't see plagiarism as wrong, and they consider teachers as lazy as they are and think that lecturer will not care. These are the responses which we collected mostly in 2013, 2012 to 2013. When we asked students in the same time, the reasons were that they are run out of time. So as you pointed out also in the chat, time pressure, they are unable to cope with the workload, with other tasks, lack of confidence. They think that their own work would not be good enough. So here you can see that the reasons seen by teachers are quite different from the reasons seen by students. For students, it's mostly the question of pressure. For teachers, it is mostly the question of, let's say, laziness and lack of integrity. And we should consider these differences when designing courses of academic writing or integrity courses, when we explain students what plagiarism is. So understanding their reasons is really important. Another misunderstanding between students and teachers, which came out from our surveys, was about how students get to know about plagiarism. Teachers tend to overestimate their own activities like classes or workshops, whereas students answer that most often they get information from web pages. Hopefully these are university web pages and not SAML web pages. What is difficult in academic writing for teachers? Teachers think that for students the most difficult thing is to cope with different referencing formats, citing and referencing skills. For students, the most difficult thing on academic writing is finding good sources and proper paraphrasing skills. And also, if we look at the judgment of scenarios, there are significant differences between how students and teachers judge these scenarios. In all scenarios, teachers were always more serious in their judgment than students. As you can see here, the convincement that these scenarios are cases of plagiarism were much more strong in case of teachers than in case of students. So these were reasons. How do you think we can prevent plagiarism, either we as teachers or we as institutions? So we have demonstrating best practice, more teacher training. Yeah, that's a valid measure. At many institutions, we could see that teachers have the same lack of knowledge when it comes to plagiarism as students. So we have training, teaching referencing skills, focus on academic integrity. It's great that there are only positive suggestions.
Yes, yes, exactly. This is what I just wanted to say, that everything that we have here, it's positive, educating either teachers or students, helping to students to manage the workload, helping to them to provide them access to the knowledge, to make the citing for them more easy, and so on. Yeah, good sources available to support the students. Yeah, building a sense of academic community, building the culture of academic integrity. This is what we are, like, this is the point where we are trying to move right now in Czech Republic, because in Czech Republic we went through all these phases of convincing people that plagiarism is an issue, that we should deal with the plagiarism. We came up with the tools for supporting the detection of plagiarism. We taught people to use them, how to use them, and so on. And now we are trying to go to this next step, to build the culture of academic integrity, to actually have it part of people's mind that cheating is bad and that we should all do what is right. So we had here the point at the left bottom corner, education and support to students, and to the bottom right corner, training for staff or education of staff. Also, what is important to bear in mind, that also the clear policies and following them in consistently for each case, for each student, not to do differences among the students, because one of them has, I don't know, blue eyes and the other one has green eyes. So be consistent for all teachers, for all students. Also the students, I think it was also in the chat, that the students need to have clear instructions. They need to know the expectations of the teachers, and also they have to be aware of the consequences. The point of the negative motivation might work for some students as well, especially for the one who are like difficult to convince to do something wrong, who would try to cheat anyway. So maybe for these ones, the awareness of consequences might work as the part of the negative motivation. Also, there are many or at least multiple examples from the literature, from the research, that systematic effort works. We have here two examples of two studies, each of them from a different part of the world. One was a 10-year study. When they introduced academic writing, they started to use the software. They have educational changes and so on. And it decreased with plagiarism, and also it worked as a prevention of a contract cheating. The other one was 5-year study, a little bit older, ending up in 2013. And again, the self-reported plagiarism dropped significantly, and also they put into the center the nature of the assessment. So we recommend this if you need like a backup argument why the systematic work is so important. Here we suggest this as the references. And what is the most important, and I can see there was some question on it in the chat, but I missed the original question, was regarding the software for support of detection of plagiarism, because in some cases, and it was definitely a case of Czech Republic, and I believe unfortunately it's case of many other places, that people, when they have the software, they think that the problem is solved. But what is really important to teach to the teachers, and also to teach to the university management who is setting up the policies, that the software is just a tool which is helping to the teachers, which is supporting the teacher, which is actually doing the part of the work which is really difficult for the teacher, but it's very simple for the computers. And this is just comparing the content and finding the matches and showing the matches. Actually, you should never rely on the percentage of the software, that we should always check the sources and check the background behind this go into the deep of the report from the plagiarism detection software. So we have here the case at the very beginning, the diploma thesis from our faculty, where the similarity was 24%. And actually it was 100% plagiarism. The student really took the original source and just rewrote it, just paraphrased it, and did not reference. He did not do any work by himself. So it was actually 100% plagiarism. Then we know about, or we heard about the case from Australia, where there was a quite tiny similarity, 8%. But when the teacher checked the similarity report, he saw that there was an entire match in the abstract of the given assignment and of some assignment which was available at the website. So when he went to the website, he found out that this website is an SAML, and that actually this abstract is the part of the assignment which is publicly available, and the rest of the assignment is hidden behind the paywall. Of course, the software could not get to the paywall, so it found only the abstract. So it was highly probable that it's again 100% plagiarism, but just most of it was hidden behind the paywall. Another case we have as an example, again, quite small percent, quite on the on the level of the natural match, which might be okay. But in this case, it wasn't just some random phrases throughout the text, but it was the whole entire list of references. And actually the list of the references is a great tool which can help us to find a translation plagiarism. Because even when you translate the entire text and you take really different languages, you take even the different alphabets, the references still stay more or less the same. And this is what can help us. And here the teacher found out that the thesis, again, it was 100% plagiarism, and it was translated from Russian language to Georgian language. And we have another case, again, from our faculty, which is like the entire opposite. The percentage was 89%. So wow, this looks like really bad. But actually, it was totally okay. It was no plagiarism. It was just previous version of the same thesis. And it was just basically, let's say, system error or technical error, that the student submitted the thesis, and then he found out that he can't defend his thesis yet. He had to prolong his studies for some reason. So he decided to withdraw the thesis before having any review from the opponent or from the supervisor. And he elaborated the thesis a little bit more, he made it a little bit better, and then he submitted again. But unfortunately in the system, for some reasons, they stated the original version of the thesis. So there was the text match with the previous version of the thesis, which was actually there was never any benefit on the first version. So this wasn't a case of plagiarism. It was like typical false positive case. So here we got to the end. I think we are perfectly with the timing of the 90 minutes. So here you can see a list of the sources that we used for this presentation, and maybe some inspiration for further reading. I haven't managed to follow the chat, so maybe I will pass the words to Tomáš if he has some comments on the questions which might appear in the chat.
Well, yes, in the recent minutes there were some comments, some short questions or comments which I answered. Some of them I just agreed with some comments, but nothing to explain or to comment on, like for all people here. So thanks again from my side for participating. Here you have the link to academicintegrity.eu webpage, where you can find this presentation and also this workshop translated in more languages, and there are many more educational materials which you can use when explaining students about plagiarism, academic integrity, or other in general, or other integrity issues.
So thank you both, Tomasz and Dita. It was really interesting, although I didn't win. But okay, maybe next time. I would like to invite you all to register. We have 2 more webinars this week. One is a teacher panel that I'm moderating on Thursday. And we are going to talk about being a teacher now during the pandemics, and what problems and we have encountered, but also what good examples and good solutions we have to those problems with suddenly everyone teaching online, etc., etc. On Friday, our colleague Shiva Subramaniam, I've been trying whole week to pronounce it correctly, is going to talk about building your own ethical behaviors in medical research. So please join us. You have the link in the chat. It's academicintegrity.eu/webinar. So thank you once again, and I hope that we will see each other again on Thursday and Friday. Thank you.